why we are on this planet.
By accident or by design or by superpower?
I think even the planet is wondering why the hell these human beings came here. See, the solar system, the way it is, and so as the other universal systems, the galaxies, they're all happening because they arrive at a certain perfection of geometry. Geometry in the sense, right now this planet is going around the sun, it's found its perfect orbit, so it's going and going and going. Not powered by engine or something. See, the airplane is going, powered by engines, it's being pushed. This is not being pushed, this has just found a certain perfection of geometry and it's going on. The day it loses its perfection of geometry, if it loses the line of orbit, it's gone. So in this process, life happens on this planet, also involving this geometry on various levels. We say, in the yogic culture, we say, a human being is physiologically and in terms of brain has reached its peak, physiologically. That is, after 1,000,000 years, you will not have a horn coming out of your head or something else, like the tail disappeared, something else will disappear. This cannot happen. We are saying this from a certain context. Today, the modern neuroscientists are saying similar things. They're saying the size of the neuron in the human brain can neither increase nor can the wiring inside can increase, because the physical laws don't permit it. The laws of physics do not permit it. I will not go into the detail of that. To put it very simply, how we see it is, your birth here, right now all life on this planet is solar powered, isn't it? Yes? It is the sun's energy which is doing all this. And also the revolutions and the rotations of the moon also has influence upon us. The very ocean is rising and falling with the movement of the moon. Only because our mothers' bodies were in tune with the cycle of the moon, we are born and we are here. Yes? If this 28-day cycle of the moon does not repeat itself in a woman's body, you and me wouldn't be born. So because it has reached that, we say physically, the physical laws have come to a certain place where life upon this planet cannot evolve further. You can make use of what you have in a much better way. Using the same technology, we had a dumb phone, then we had a smartphone, now we have an iPhone. Like this we can go on improving it, how we use it. But the fundamental physical laws will not permit any further evolution of this creature. So did it happen by accident? No. The theory of evolution, you know Charles Darwin, who made a monkey out of you? Not me, him. If you look at the theory of evolution, which was propounded just 150 years ago, we have said this thousands of years ago, in the sense, you know the 10 avatars? At least the 9 you know, those who have come. What is the first one? Matsya Avatara. Matsya Avatara means fish or water life. All life on this planet started underwater. What is the next avatara? Kurma Avatara, amphibious like a turtle, half in the water, half on the land. The next one is Varaha Avatara, a pig or a wild boar. Among the mammals, one animal which is strongly rooted in its body is a wild boar. See, we live next to the forest, we see this. The tribal boys can kill a deer with a stick. If you hit it with a stick, it'll fall dead. The local dogs will hunt the deer, but a wild boar you try to kill him and see, it's not easy to kill him. You go smash him with a car, his spine is broken, still he will go, he will not stop. Because he's so physically rooted, his life is so physical. So the next form of life was Varaha. This simply means the creator is finding expression in first as fish, then as a turtle, then as a wild boar, Next one is Narasimha, half man, half animal. Next one is Vamana, a dwarfed man. Next one is a full-grown man but emotionally volatile man who is Parashurama. Next one is a peaceful man, which is Rama. Next is a loving man, which is a Krishna. Next is a meditative man, which is a Buddha. The next is supposed to be a mystical being yet to come. Okay? This is running very much in parallel lines with the Darwin's theory of evolution. Yes or no? It's in the same sequence, exactly in the same sequence. Darwin propounded his theory only 150 years ago. This was said 12 to 15,000 years ago. Adiyogi himself spoke about it. So, if you observe life, you can clearly see from what is inanimate, basic life formed. From that, life evolved. We've always seen it that way. Always we saw life evolved. Constantly, we are in every temple you go, there is a snake. There are various symbolisms all around the place, because even today in your brain, one part of your brain is a reptilian brain. You know, the core part of your brain is still a reptilian brain and it still functions, and we have different practices in yoga as to how to transcend this reptilian brain and allow the cerebral cortex to function. And today, we have scientific evidence to show you. The University of California has done scientific studies on Shambhavi Mahamudra, the basic practice we teach usually. And they say if you practice Shambhavi Mahamudra for 3 months, the neuronal regeneration increases by 241%, a kind of percentage that's never been recorded in the history of any kind of research, okay? Just a simple practice for 21 minutes, 241% increase in your brain function and neuronal regeneration. This means as you grow old, you will become more intelligent. Usually young people think you're getting stupid. Yes, your brain is actually growing, you understand? It's getting better by the day. Now there is scientific evidence. We always knew this, but today a meter has to say it. If a man says it, it's not true. If a man says it, it's doubtful. But a meter has to say it. Now the meters are saying it. The meters are saying your brain is actually growing by doing a simple 21-minute practice. And you don't believe the meter. You just do the practice for 3 months and see, you will see how clear and how smart your mind is suddenly.
I'm David Icke from England. I went through an extraordinary series of what you might call paranormal experiences, not that they were, 20 years ago in 1990 and 89, and basically the veil lifted. And I saw the world in a completely different way. And I started on a journey of research, which has led me over 20 years to a very obvious conclusion that this world is controlled by very, very few people behind the people we think are in power. And they have a very, very malevolent agenda for humanity as a whole, who to them are nothing more than cattle.
It doesn't take many brain cells on active duty to realize that we are at a fork in the road. We can no longer stand there staring at the map thinking, which way do I go? Because we're facing, in the next few years, enormous challenges which we can cope with and will come through, and this control system's coming down, but ain't coming down tomorrow.
When I started talking about this information 20 years ago, you could hardly get anyone to look at it. And in terms of public events, I couldn't fill a phone booth. But over the last 20 years, there's been demonstrably, blatantly, obviously, a fantastic awakening, and it's getting faster and faster all the time. I first of all noticed a big change after 9/11. Although the vast majority of people bought the official line, there was something about it that started to get others to think and come off the fence. And when the weapons of mass destruction were not found in Iraq, it was almost like a confirmation. You know, people talk about, well, you must never believe what the government says, you must never believe what the media says, but so many people just go ahead and do that. And the lack of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq were like somebody reminding you, see, look, governments lie. And after 2003 and all that, this awakening, this questioning of the world, this questioning of authority got more and more blatant. And as the police state and the Orwellian state is breaking the surface ever more obviously, it's getting more and more people to see the world in a way that they wouldn't have done before. And it's getting faster and faster, and it's a great time to be doing what we're doing, putting this information out, and it's very, very encouraging. The whole conspiracy is founded on keeping humanity in a very, very low level of perception about self, perception about the world. This is why we have the dumbing down of education. This is why we have the controlled so-called information that comes through the media. The idea is to keep people in ignorance of anything that would be a problem to the control system. So we're kept in ignorance about the nature of reality itself, the nature of life itself, who we are, where we are, what we're doing here. We're kept in ignorance of the true forces that are manipulating behind the people we see in the public arena, like we had 8 years of Bush, who was blatantly just a figurehead signing his name on the legislation, and he's been replaced by Obama, who is another blatant figurehead doing the same, controlled by the same force, ultimately, that controlled Bush. Now, all these connections have to be kept from people so that we behave and perceive the world and everything in the way that suits the control system. So any awakening, any opening of the mind to see things that people didn't see before is a real big problem for the conspiracy, for the manipulators. And what we're seeing now, as more and more people are awakening, is almost a panic-stricken attempt to put the lid on this, to dumb people down. And this is one reason why we're seeing the ever greater drugging of American children, not just American children, but in the wider world too, while we're seeing more and more of these chemical cocktails in food that destabilize the body's chemical balance, and more electromagnetic pollution to destabilize the the body's electromagnetic balance. All of these things fundamentally affect the way people see the world and their ability to think sharply, to think straight, and to see the peripheral vision which you need to see what's actually going on. They want us here. And what an awakening mind does is start to do this. And when you do that, you start to connect dots that you can't actually see here. What we're looking at now is an irresistible force, I would suggest, which is the gathering awakening of humanity coming face to face with what thinks it's the immovable object, the conspiracy, but isn't, as we'll see, although it's going to take some years before that becomes obvious. And so we're at this fork in the road where people have to choose. Are they going to go on being controlled sheep and robots of the control system, or are they going to wake up and take the road to freedom? That's the fork in the road, and that's the choice that people are facing now and will face ever more blatantly in the next few years. When you look at the bloodline families and the control system that they oversee, it seems that they are all-powerful. They control the media ownership level and at key positions within it. They control the corporations, the cartels of oil, of pharmaceuticals, etc. They control the forces of law enforcement and the military, ultimately. But one thing they don't control is the numbers. This is what humanity has. It has vast numbers of people, enormous numbers of people compared with those at the core of the control system that actually know exactly what they're doing and what the agenda is. They are tiny in number compared with what is now supposed to be 7 billion people on the planet. So one of the agendas to bring this under greater control for them is to massively cull the population. They want to reduce the numbers. Now, if you want to remove lots of people, you can do it by injecting stuff into people's arms and they just keel over dead. But if you do that, and of course there is some of that goes on, but if you do that, are the other people lined up are going to say, excuse me, I ain't having whatever they've had. So you do it in a more subtle way, and you target the defense mechanism that everyone has called the immune system. For instance, people don't die of AIDS. They die of AIDS-related disease, which are diseases that the immune system, before it becomes shot, would have defended the body from. So all the time now we're having the immune system targeted, not least among children and young people, by vaccinations, by food additives and drink additives, etc. And if we just think about this, I mean, it's so blatant. If people just take a deep breath and take a step back and look at it with a bit of peripheral vision, we have a situation now, not just in America, but in Britain and the wider world, where between birth and about 2 years of age, we're having children be given 25 and rising different vaccinations and combinations of them, poured in all this, these chemical cocktails that destabilize the body, but more important than that, they have to be dealt with by a still developing immune system. So the immune system's still developing, it's still coming up to optimum efficiency, and suddenly this tidal wave of chemical concoctions is thrown at it and has to deal with it. As it's dealing with one, suddenly another one comes. 25 vaccinations over the first 2 years of life. It is, by any level of common sense, it's ludicrous, and it's meant to be ludicrous because it's targeting the immune systems of young children, which, because it's done at a developing time in the immune system, rewires it, destabilizes it, imbalances it for the rest of their lives. Those kids' immune system will never be as efficient as it would have been otherwise. My son, he's now 16, he's never had a vaccination. He's 6'5", incredibly healthy, never had a childhood disease. And his mates at school had childhood diseases. They had the whole blooming lot. And it has been planned for a very, very long time.
Það eðlilegt að forsætisráðherra sé á harða hlaupum, sé á flótta undan því nú þegar allt útlit fyrir að verðbólga sé að aukast, þegar spurt hvers vegna ákvað Framsóknarflokkurinn að svíkja stærsta kosningaloforð sitt, afnám verðtryggingar. Hvers vegna hefur ekkert gerst í því?
The flicker rate on the television is very, very important. It was timed to be so many cycles per second, and it actually just meets with the brain patterns for an alpha state. When our brain sees it through our eyes, we start to adopt that flicker rate in our mind, and we go into a deep alpha state. Watch children and watch their mouths. They drop open. They won't hear their parents talking. They're hypnotized, in fact. Why would they give that particular flicker rate when they could have chosen of a whole variety of flicker rates? It wasn't an essential thing to have. So it was done for a purpose. It was meant to be hypnotic. It was meant to be used as a tool of propaganda and indoctrination, even through the guise of entertainment and so on. It also was to create a new society because they were the avant-garde, as I say, leading the sexual revolution through drama, through little documentaries, fiction, non-fiction, all combined. Once again, back to Plato, the audience see what they see. You understand that it's even worked out towards different age groups. There's something on for everybody's age group. Each age group is actually being updated as well, even the elderly ones, into new ways of thinking or seeing things. But the target mainly was for youngsters. If we take one of the world's experts on propaganda, who is Jacques Ellul, who wrote extensively on how the mind works and how all entertainment, he said, that has to do with government programs such as police, detective stories, detective series, which contain little human dramas as the hook that you identify with, to make you watch the whole story. The child gets kidnapped, detective goes on a hunt, he goes through hell and fire to get that child back. You identify with the hero if you're a male, you identify with the heroine if you're female. And that's the hook to get you to watch them. But what he said was, all dramas to do with police, or even the military in movies, are pure propaganda. Pure propaganda. The human story is just the bait to make you watch through it, to get you to identify with it. Because once again, there's always a message left somewhere in the movie. It might even be a message that's against your own morality. It could be where the cop, for instance,
already.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can produce that kind of propaganda result, it's worth all that wasted money compared to what you would have to pay out for environmental disasters. And he said, we're getting closer to that day when you're going to be able to make that argument in a courtroom and say, look, you know, yeah, you're talking about all these people dying of cancer in this small town in California. Well, let's look at the 150 cases here, and let's see the other 150 that didn't get cancer. And we're going to present to you genetic evidence that shows that it's really all about the genes.
That's right. It's not our fault.
Not our fault. I mean, it's just these people are predisposed. So that was pretty fantastic. And then 2 years later, out comes a book, Remaking Eden, Cloning and Beyond in a Brave New World, written by Lee Silver, who is a professor at Princeton Department of Molecular Biology, Woodrow Wilson School for Public and International Affairs. And this, to me, was the capper. Now, this is